Here are the top stories for today, April 23, 2021. Easing woes on hospital claims. The IATF approves the use of state insurer Philhealth's new payment policy by healthcare facilities in high and critical risk areas for COVID-19. No less than the country's health chief gets vaccinated for COVID-19. Secretary Francisco Duque III urges the people to be inoculated to help fight the pandemic. Unjustified, Malacanang rejects Senator's plan to defend the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. It says these funds are important for the development of insurgency-free villages. And Pinay pride, a young Boholana brings home the bacon after ruling the women's 71-kilogram category of the Asian Weightlifting Championships. Good day, I'm Marita Muahe. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Healthcare facilities in all high-risk and critical areas can now avail of the debit-credit payment method of Philhealth. This is to facilitate faster transaction between the hospitals and Philhealth. Under the scheme, Philhealth will pay 60% of the total amount payable to healthcare facilities and pay the remaining 40% after it complies to existing claims, processing requirements, and procedures. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, also acting as IATF-EID spokesperson, said Philhealth's debit-credit payment method applies to all high and critical risk areas. These include Metro Manila, Batangas, and the provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, Pampanga, and Rizal, among others. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III is the latest government official to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Duque, who is 64 years old, is under the A2 priority listing. The health chief underwent the usual vaccination process such as checking of vital signs and health information assessment. DOH Undersecretary Gerardo Bayugo administered the Sinovac shot to Duque at the agency's main office in Manila earlier today. Duque said he waited for medical frontliners to get inoculated first before deciding to get the jobs. He urged the people to get vaccinated, saying the jobs save countless lives and the government is doing everything to secure sufficient vaccine doses for Filipinos. The Department of Health and the Philippine Food and Drug Administration also assured the public that the vaccines are safe and effective in preventing hospitalization and death from the disease, and that the benefits of vaccination far outweigh its risks. Almost 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines are set to arrive in the country by the end of the month, on top of the 500,000 Sinovac vaccines that arrived in the country yesterday. The initial batch of 15,000 doses of Sputnik vaccine produced by Gamaleya will arrive on Sunday, which will be used in a simulation activity in Taguig. Another 480,000 doses more of Sputnik V will arrive next week, April 29, along with another 500,000 more doses of China's Sinovac jabs. The country is also expecting 195,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine by the end of the month through the COVAX facility. And next month, 2 million doses of Sputnik V, 2 million doses of Sinovac, and an initial batch of 194,000 doses of Moderna vaccines will be delivered. With 500,000 doses of Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine yesterday, the country's total doses of Sinovac jabs are now at 3 million. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said 100,000 doses will be allocated in the National Capital Region, while the remaining 400,000 doses will be distributed in priority areas in Western and Central Visayas, particularly Cebu and Davao. The Philippines currently rank 4th behind Indonesia, Singapore, and Myanmar in terms of administering COVID-19 vaccines among Southeast Asian countries. Amid the recommendation of the Labor Department to relax the quarantine protocol among returning overseas Filipinos, health experts say it cannot be completely abolished. They say RT-PCR tests mostly yield false negative results. The DOH Technical Advisory Group maintains that quarantine should be strictly enforced to keep our borders safe. Health experts concurred that the 14-day mandatory testing may be relaxed to 10 days provided that the returning OFWs remain asymptomatic and monitoring is strictly implemented.
Kaya nga po kami nakikiusap sana, Mr. President, na kung mari, we go back to the regional protocol noon na pagdating nung ating mga OFWs, swab agad sila. After 5 days, they've been found to be negative. Bakit hindi natin sila pauwiin, Mr. President?
Based on the Department of Health data, in fact, even after the 5th day, there are still about 40% of people who still test positive on the 7th day po of arrival. So our proposed solution po kasi is that the testing, even on the 5th day, will still not pick up everyone. So it is either we test on the 7th day or we completely do away with the testing, but make sure that we quarantine everybody until the 10th day po.
Hospitals in the NCR Plus area committed additional beds to cater to COVID-19 patients. Currently, the utilization rate of ICU beds in Metro Manila and 4 nearby provinces is still at a critical level at 82% as of April 21. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Deputy Chief Implementer Vivencio Dizon said the public and private hospitals from National Capital Region, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal vowed to add 176 more intensive care unit beds and more than 1,000 ward beds in their facilities. He said this is expected to ease the ICU utilization rate in Metro Manila to 70%. He also said that the government will build more isolation facilities in other private and public schools as well as tent facilities in public hospitals. For its part, the Philippine Red Cross has opened the isolation facilities at the University of the Philippines Diliman, Ateneo de Manila University in Quezon City, and De La Salle University College of St. Benilde in Manila. Malacanang reminds the public to properly dispose used face masks to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 and reduce its negative impact on the environment in observance of Earth Day on Thursday. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the public could help reduce the negative impact on the environment by ensuring that single-use face masks are disposed correctly. Concerned agencies are also boosting information dissemination on the safety of reusable face masks and safe handling of medical wastes. President Rodrigo Duterte earlier emphasized the importance of addressing climate change as urgently as the COVID-19 pandemic. He urged parties of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change to make good and honor their commitment to fight climate change and strengthen communities and people for preparedness and resilience. More than 1 billion people are participating in Earth Day activities each year, making it the largest civic observance in the world. Still to come, the palace cries foul over senators' plan to defund the government's anti-insurgency body. And turning over a new leaf, a communist terrorist group leader ends her stint with the armed struggle. Back after a quick break, this is the PNA Newsroom.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang sided with the National Task Force and local communist armed conflict amid threats to defund the agency over allegations of red tagging community pantries. The military had also been repeatedly vilified for red tagging these pantries, has vowed to aid these humanitarian activities. Jenny Scave has a story.
Malacanang thumbed down some senators' push to defund the government's anti-insurgency task force over alleged red tagging issues amid the rise of community pantries. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said defunding the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict is unjustified since its funds are currently being used to free villages from threats to security and development.
Ang pagkakaalam ko po, yung pondo ng ELCAC para po sa mga proyekto na magbibigay ng asenso at progreso sa mga lugar na meron pang mga rebelde. So sa akin po, hindi naman po justified yan. No? Hayaan natin gawin nila ang katungkulan nila kung meron talaga silang opisyal na ginagawa dyan, pero ang pulisiya po ay malinaw.
Roque also said the President, the Department of the Interior and Local Government, and the Philippine National Police clearly allow the proliferation of the community pantries to bloom. At least 6 senators wanted to withdraw funding for the NTF-ELCAC and reallocate its current 19 billion peso budget to fund assistance to people affected by the pandemic. For its part, the Armed Forces of the Philippines has ordered to support community pantries. AFP Chief of Staff General Cirilito Sobihana said, aside from allocating funds to aid pantries, he plans to convince the troops to donate 1 day of their subsistence allowance for similar undertakings. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said they would deploy the AFP mobile kitchens to local government units where they are needed. As this developed, the Philippine Navy turned over some 3.3 million pesos to support the country's COVID-19 response operations. Meanwhile, former communist cadre Shane Valdez revealed that Maginhawa Community Pantry organizer Ana Patricia Non was a former communist terrorist group member. She said Non was affiliated with Kabataang Artista para sa Tunay na Kalayaan or Karatula, a CPP legal front organization. Valdez, formerly the spokesperson of Anakbayan Central Luzon, clarified that she is not against community pantries as long as they are not tainted with ideological and political agenda. Non earlier denied involvement with communist groups, even branding a reporter's question about it as inappropriate. On the other hand, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte assured that the local government is only supporting colorless and apolitical community pantries. She said that pantries that are fronts for vested interests and political agendas jeopardize the integrity of community pantries that are put up for purely humanitarian objectives. PCOO Undersecretary Lorraine Maribadoy appealed to communist terrorist groups and their legal front organizations to stop making struggling families believe that the government is not doing anything to help them. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Malacanang expressed support to the initiative of the Catholic Church to hold a day of prayer on May 8 to honor the people who perished due to COVID-19. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, a COVID-19 survivor, said special prayers for thousands of people who died of COVID-19 are always welcome. In a pastoral instruction dated April 20, Bishop Broderick Pabilio, Apostolic Administrator of the Archdiocese of Manila, said the Mass for the Dead will be held at the Manila Cathedral on May 8 at 9 a.m. The day of prayer will be preceded by 3 days of Holy Hour at 6 p.m. in front of the Blessed Sacrament. There will be prayers for frontliners on May 5, for the sick on May 6, and for the dead on May 7. Meanwhile, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines encouraged parishes and religious communities to continue with their charitable works even if they are faced with challenges. CBCP President Archbishop Romulo Valles expressed support for community-based initiatives that sprouted in many areas in the country in the spirit of bayanihan. On the other hand, Valles urged the people to also help those who were affected by the recent Typhoon Bising. For his part, National Council of Churches in the Philippines General Secretary Bishop Roel Norman Marigza encouraged their member churches to either put community pantries in local churches and parishes or to make donations to existing ones in their communities. A high-ranking officer of a communist terrorist group based in Quezon Province who got tired of her life with her so-called comrades recently returned to the government fold. Jeneline Dichoso alias Gemma, the 52-year-old Secretary General of leftist group Karapatan Quezon, was welcomed back in Barangay 10, Poblacion, Catanawan, Quezon last April 5. Dichoso said working for the communist terrorist group was a life full of problems. She admitted that she felt guilty for putting those she recruited in danger. She also said she left the armed movement because she does not want to kill others. Dichoso will undergo social reintegration, medical checkup, and debriefing, while the Army will ensure her safety from NPA retaliation. Brigadier General Romel Telio, acting commander of the Army's 2nd Infantry Division, meanwhile said Karapatan Southern Tagalog should be worried that their members have realized the lies fed to them. President Rodrigo Duterte continues to engage with state leaders in the Middle East to push for the abolition of the kafala, a system widely used to monitor migrant workers. Presidential Assistant on Foreign Affairs Robert Borges said President Duterte is quietly writing to his counterparts, to leaders, and even sends special envoys to express his views on the issue. Borges said Duterte's public call last Tuesday was a significant move to rally other states to start implementing labor reforms. He noted that President Duterte is the only leader who has confronted the kafala issue openly, having described the system as unjust and unequal. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sara Lu Ariola also expressed optimism that other countries would soon follow the initiatives taken by Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. In our business news, the Department of Agriculture calls on farmers and fisherfolk to join cooperatives to benefit from the agency's various assistance programs. DA Assistant Secretary Christine Evangelista said one such program is Ikadiwa, an online marketing platform that directly links producers and agripreneurs to consumers. Evangelista said the program has helped more than 16,000 producers to boost their income through the online marketplace. The program has 875 million pesos in sales from March 2020 to March 2021. The DA's assistance for high-value crop farmers ranges from seed distribution to hosting a storage facility for produce. The agency can also offer financial and transport assistance. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority showed that banana, calamansi, mango, and pineapple are the 4 major fruit crops produced from October to December 2020. Up next, Stronger Alliance. The United States is committed to working with the Philippines in strengthening maritime security. And a young Filipina bags 2 golds in the Asian Weightlifting Championships in Uzbekistan. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at nang himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The United States is working with the Philippines to strengthen its maritime domain awareness and ability to secure its territory amid reports of illegal fishing in the West Philippine Sea. U.S. Embassy Charge d'Affaires John Law said Washington shares the country's concerns over environmental destruction as well as the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in its waters. Law cited a report that illegally caught fish in Philippine waters estimated about 63 billion pesos a year. He said the United States Agency for International Development is partnering with the Philippines to promote sustainable fishing practices and enhance the well-being of Filipino fisherfolk. Meanwhile, he echoed the statement of State Secretary Anthony Blinken that a strong Philippine-US alliance is vital to a free and open Indo-Pacific region. National Commission on Indigenous Peoples Chairperson Allen Capuyan on Monday reiterated the significance of amplifying the genuine voices of Indigenous peoples in international and national fora. Capuyan stressed the importance of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues as a platform to exchange views and develop partnerships with IPs. He reaffirmed the resolve of the government under the leadership of President Rodrigo Duterte to ensure that issues related to indigenous peoples are IP-driven. Capuyan reported to the UN Forum the government's initiatives, including distributing food aid to IP households and extending livelihood assistance towards greater self-sufficiency. Capuyan expressed hope that the forum's work will always be based on credible and balanced platform to empower IPs worldwide.
Indeed, the Philippines empowers its indigenous people communities to have their voices heard in national and international fora. This has always been the thrust of the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples of our country as the focus mechanism of the Philippines government for the promotion and protection of the rights of more than 15 million indigenous peoples in the Philippines.
More than 50% of Marawi Rehabilitation project has been accomplished as the government ramps up the development in the war-torn city. The details from Claire Gighe.
Task Force Bangon Marawi or TFBM Chairperson Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario announced in his recent visit in Marawi City yesterday that more than 50% of the Marawi rehabilitation process has been accomplished.
When I was here last month, I said it's between 45 to 50, and based on the presentation yesterday and our inspection today, it's now between 55 to 60%.
Among the infrastructure projects in the most affected area, Del Rosario said that the road networks are expected to be completed first, which will be done by the National Housing Authority by the end of September. Del Rosario, who also has the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development or DSHUD, is in Marawi City for a 3-day inspection of the progress on the rehabilitation process. He, along with other LGU Marawi and DSHUD officials, checked on the progress of the construction of permanent housing in Barangay Dulay Proper and Barangay Patani, School of Living Tradition, Marawi Museum, Peace Memorial Park, and Grand Padian, as well as the repair of Grand Mosque, White Mosque, and Mosque Darussalam. The TFBM chief also visited the Central Material Recovery Facility under the Solid Waste Management Project being implemented by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency, Iligan City Information Center.
Former Interior Undersecretary and Special Envoy to Malaysia, Wencelito Andanar, died on Thursday morning due to liver cancer. He was 73. Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar confirmed his father's passing in a press statement. The younger Andanar described his father as the greatest man and mentor he has ever known. He said his father was also a man of service, having dedicated his professional years as a public servant. Malacanang also offered condolences and prayers to Andanar's family, friends, and colleagues. Over the course of his career, Wencelito was also the officer-in-charge governor of Surigao del Norte from 1986 to 1988. He served as the chairman of the Philippine Coconut Authority from 1982 to 1992. He was appointed as presidential assistant to President Corazon Aquino from 1989 to 1992. He also served as Interior Undersecretary from 2001 to 2007. Two centers doing registration for the Philippine Identification System or PhilSys in Bataan were temporarily closed due to the threat of COVID-19. Step 2 registration in Bagac was temporarily stopped upon the request of Mayor Ramil del Rosario due to a spike in the number of COVID-19 cases in the mountain town. No one from the center was infected. Meanwhile, the Balanga City Center is only waiting for some workers to complete their 14-day quarantine. It will reopen on April 29 to resume Step 2 registration. The Philippine Statistics Authority said the rest of the centers in 10 towns are in full operation. To compensate for the time lost in the closed centers, PSA Bataan Chief Francisco Corpus directed the transfer of registration kits and equipment to other municipalities. As of Wednesday, there were 89,000 people, or about 70%, who have finished registering for Step 2. In sports, a Pinay weightlifter Vanessa Sarno on Wednesday ruled the women's 71-kilogram category of the ongoing Asian Weightlifting Championships in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. The 17-year-old Bohol native lifted a total of 229 kilograms to take home the overall gold in the event. Sarno also lifted the heaviest in the clean and jerk routine with 128 kilograms, giving her another gold. Gulnabat Kadirova of Turkmenistan lifted better than Sarno in the snatch but faltered in clean and jerk, earning her a silver medal, while Kazakhstan's Yekaterina Baikova settled for the bronze. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Easing woes on hospital claims, the IATF approves the use of state insurer Philhealth's new payment policy by healthcare facilities in high and critical risk areas for COVID-19. No less than the country's health chief gets vaccinated for COVID-19. Secretary Francisco Duque III urges the people to be inoculated to help fight the pandemic. Unjustified, Malacanang rejects Senator's plan to defend the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. It says these funds are important for the development of insurgency-free villages. And Pinay Pride, a young Boholana brings home the bacon after ruling the women's 71-kilogram category of the Asian Weightlifting Championships. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Good day, happy weekend, and stay safe.